is 1995. I'm married, 3 kids, and all the typical trappings that go along with middle-class success, you know, meaning bills, a mortgage, cars, well, you know the drill. So we're in the process of buying our second home, and I am desperately trying to make a pretty significant career change when my world gets rocked, and not in the good way. My husband of 22 years has the sudden epiphany that he settled down way too soon, and he really never had a chance to live. Yeah. Have you ever heard that old saying that life is what happens when you're busy making other plans? Well, I can tell you this much. As a former project manager, I was very, very good at making and executing plans. I was also pretty good at taking the blame for pretty much everything that ever went wrong. I let people with stronger wills than I kind of call the shots and direct my life. So here I am. My high school sweetheart has walked out on me. Yes, I started dating this man when I was only 15 years old. You know, the age when all wise decisions are made. And I realize I don't even know who I am. I mean, my identity had been so wrapped up for years and years in being somebody's wife and somebody's mom that I didn't even know who I was. So I knew who I was on the job, at least I thought that I did, but this experience completely shook me out of my complacency. Who am I? What do I like to do? Do I even want to be a project manager? And how did I end up at this company? But in the midst of that, I really began to hurt inside, because then it became, what was wrong with me that my marriage fell apart? Where did I go wrong? What warning signs did I miss? Well, fortunately, in the midst of this potential downward spiral, I began to get angry. I mean, why did one person get to call the shots and decide the future for me and my kids? I mean, who made him the boss of me? And then, best introspective of all, how had I allowed myself to get so lost that I tolerated neglect and bad behavior for years and years? Yeah, I was angry, all right. I was angry at myself. And I became resolute that this experience, this literal fork in the road, was not going to define me. Eleanor Roosevelt said, "No one can make you a victim without your permission." Well, I wasn't going to give my permission. I decided that somewhere in the midst of this completely sucky experience, I was going to find the lesson, I was going to learn it, and I was going to emerge stronger and better for it. Now, the good thing about adversity is that we have the chance to learn through it, but that's not a given. I mean, I really could die in the wilderness. This could be the very thing that completely takes me out. So what makes the difference? My microphone is sliding right down my behind. Excuse me. The basis of this talk is resilience. All right, where was I? Okay, so it's not necessarily a given that you're going to learn through every adversity. I mean, you could literally die in the wilderness. This could be the very thing that took me under. So what made the difference? Well, I did come to define it as the resilience factor. It's the thing inside each of us that lets us choose to be a survivor and not a victim. Okay, I was sold. I said, I gotta have this. How do I get it? Because I sure don't have it now. So Resilience factor number 1. You got to be true to your egg. This is foundational. It's important. So listen up. You got to be true to your egg. See, my value system was pretty much overshadowed by that of my husband's. If he had a perspective that I didn't agree with, I never spoke up. I didn't say anything. Until one day when he voiced an opinion that was just so wrong, so opposite of everything that I knew to be true. I finally had to say something. And it was like, one of those watershed moments where you see your life, or in my case, my marriage, pass before my very eyes. See, my principles were buried. I was not intentional about anything, and shame on me. There's a saying in the military that if you want to defeat them, you distract them. Well, I was distracted, all right. I was basically sleepwalking through life, just distracted by the day-to-day busyness of living and raising a family, and I pretty much just lost myself. So what does that have to do with the egg? Oh, you thought I forgot, right? So let's imagine that this egg represents my value system. And we don't know if this egg is hard-boiled or raw. So some values can be compromised with minimal impact. It doesn't really matter that much. They're sort of important, but if you let it go, it's not really going to change the direction of your life one way or another. But the problem is, in my value system was also how I wanted to raise my kids, how I felt about human rights and dignity, my relationship with my God. And I was not intentional about any of it. I mean, I tossed this egg around like I was absolutely positive it was hard-boiled and it would never break. And I left a lot of messes in my wake. And how does one actually put Humpty Dumpty back together again? Well, that led me to resilience factor number 2. I needed to build a fence around my life and then be really, really careful who I gave the gate code to, beginning with the lies and accusations that I let just go spitballing around in my head and then come right out of my mouth, unfiltered, unchecked, unchallenged. They sounded something like this. I am so fat. I am so unattractive. I'm frumpy. And I'm old too. I might as well just face it. I'm going to be stuck in this sucky job forever and ever and ever. I'm going to be broke and lonely. No one is ever going to love me again. And what an example that's going to be to my kids. Oh, wow, I just realized I'm the first divorce in my family. They must be really, really proud of me. Way to go. Well, so you've heard it too, right? So I didn't just listen to the voice in my head. I listened to it, I entertained it, I made this comfy little place over here for it to live, and then I just crawled in right behind it. But just as dangerous as the voice in my head was the cast of characters that I actually let inside my inner circle. Now, these are real people. These are not made up in my head. These are real people, and only the names have been changed to protect the... Yeah, never mind. None of them were innocent. So first, there's the victimizer. Oh, poor you. Look what's happened to you. This is terrible. It's so unfair. What are you going to do? Your life is over. You might as well just move in with me and let me take care of you. And then there was the accuser. And there was actually several of them that wore this name. This is all your fault. You should have seen it coming. In fact, you probably caused it. You really suck. This is just all your fault, and you don't deserve to be happy after all of this. And then there was the tempter. Girlfriend, you have been locked up for years and years and years. It is time for you to kick back and get this party started. Because what did being loyal and responsible ever get you? Well, fortunately, there was also the champion. This was the friend that told me the hard truths, who challenged my thinking, who believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. who should stay and who should go? Who's good for me and who not so much? It wasn't a very hard decision. So, with my boundaries more under control and my egg firmly in place, it was time to reevaluate what success looked like. So that's resilience factor number 3. Define a new measurement. Things had changed. My dream of a long marriage to my high school sweetheart was over. Now, I could continue to hang on to a dead dream. I could continue to play the if-only game, but that just leads to revisionist history where we just start making things look better than they ever really were. And whose measurement really mattered anyway? It certainly was not the victimizer, the accuser, or the tempter, right? No, I needed a new measurement that was based on my values, my goals, my new normal. You know, friends, I did not intend, it was not in the game plan, to start all over, be struggling to make ends meet, single mom, at the very time that my life and my career should have been on an upward trajectory. And if I continued to measure myself against the criteria I had used before, I simply wouldn't measure up, right? So my new measurement said, I am an active participant in the events of my life. I am not just on the receiving end. No one will ever again be the boss of me. I've got the resilience factor. Bill Gates said, success is a lousy teacher. It makes smart people think they can't fail. But I think it makes them think they don't need to learn anything either. You know, I said earlier, learning is optional. Maybe I wouldn't have learned these lessons if my life had gone a different way. I certainly would not be the woman that you see standing before you today. Everything worthwhile is at the top of the hill. And I choose to continue to learn, to continue to grow. I choose to survive and even thrive through change. Because I'm a survivor, and so are all of you.